Woman of 9.9 Billion Story Part 2. Episode 3 and 4 Recap. We begin with a flashback showing how the car containing the money crashed. While driving, Tai Hyon tells the driver to go a different way as he believes someone will kill them if they don't. Unfortunately, the driver takes a knife out and tries stabbing him, resulting in a fight breaking out between the two and causing the car to career off the road and tumble down a hill. We then cut back to the present with Jae-hoon returning to help hide the money by putting them in different bags and making sure there are no tracking devices. Remembering the abandoned house, they decide to hide the bags at the bottom of the well, before returning back to the villa. The next morning, as everyone get ready to head back home, they hear police and ambulance sirens heading to the scene of the accident. Before leaving each other, Jae-hoon tells In-pyo to come by his office later on to discuss his contract. As they drive through the woods, they come across the ambulance taking away the bodies. Meanwhile, Taewoo is still being beaten up while tied to a wooden cross. It's here we find out that his brother has embezzled their company's money, and the man with sunglasses reveals that he died the night before in a car accident. Realizing Taewoo is telling the truth about the money, they release him and throw him back on the street. The next day, Seo-yeon calls Jae-hoon to discuss the accident and the money they hid. He tells her he can't stop thinking about it, but she explains they need to act normally to avoid suspicions being raised. He then mentions the second victim, prompting Seo-yeon to feel torn and guilty about letting him die. Meanwhile, Hee-ju meets with the fashion designer who saw Jae-hoon with another woman and gives her pictures she took of them. She tells her she knew he was at that hotel, and returning to her office, decides to rip the pictures off without looking at them. At his brother's funeral, Taewoo finds out that the company his brother was involved with acts as a cover for an illegal gambling website. He decides to visit the CEO of the company, Kim Do-hak, who we see is threatening the people who have failed to retrieve the money. As Taewoo bursts into Do-hak's office, he sees the man who kidnapped him, who explains that his brother knew about the illegal activities of the company and helped them launder the money they made. Knowing the ex-cop got fired because of bribes, Do-hak asks Taewoo to help them catch who took the money and promises anything he wants in exchange. Just as Jae-hoon is about to leave his office to meet Seo-yeon, he's stopped by his father-in-law, demanding to see the planning documents of the construction for Poyu campus, while we see Taewoo receiving a fake police badge from his ex-colleague as a favor. He decides to head to the scene of the accident to investigate and finds the trail of blood his brother left behind. After collecting the money in suitcases, Seo-yeon drives away but doesn't notice the nail left on the floor by Hee-ju's daughter the day before. This causes her to burst a tire just as Taewoo drives down the road. Things get really tense when he offers his help and opens the boot of her car to get a spare. Fortunately for her, he doesn't see the money but asks her if she knows anything about the accident. Meanwhile, at the office, Jae-hoon gets questioned by his father-in-law about the discrepancies in the books as the numbers don't add up and there's 5 million missing. Knowing the money is missing, he panics and promises to have this sorted by next week. After speaking to the caretaker of the villa, Taewoo realizes that Seo-yeon didn't come from there and wonders what her involvement with the accident is. The episode then ends with Seo-yeon speeding down the road with her treasure in tow. While the latest episode of Woman of 9.9 Billion is a little slower than the last, it still had some interesting and tense moments as we find out more about Taewoo's brother and his involvement with the money. This really helps the story move forward as not much happens with Seo-yeon in this episode. There was some clever foreshadowing in the previous chapter though when Hee-ju's daughter dropped that nail on the floor. This caused an interesting sequence of events which caused Seo-yeon to break down right in front of Taewoo, who has now become suspicious of her. I'm guessing the next few episodes will see the ex-cop trying to find out who the mysterious woman is. Woman of 9.9 Billion remains quite the gripping new drama, and now that Seo-yeon has taken the money, it'll be interesting to see what her next steps will be and how she deals with her husband, who's set to be angry after the phone call he received from Jae-hoon. All these different plot points makes this new show quite the enjoyable one to watch each Wednesday and Thursday.